Well, it's happened again. It's Thursday. And right now, it's Thursday, and in Portland, Oregon, there is a certain like humidity to the air. And you'd think, because Portland's very rainy, you'd think, oh, well, isn't it always humid? It's actually not, because the Pacific Stream riding up into the Cascades normally pulls a lot of moisture out of the air. It's nice and dry. But this reminds me of St. Louis. It reminds me of New Orleans. And I can't deal with it. I just end up looking at the air and going, you're too heavy. You're too heavy, air. I'm not into it.
Oh my
Why
God.
don't I try to cheer myself up by starting the Nerd Log? It's Thursday, and that means it's time for the Nerd Log. Let's start with our co-host. Introduce yourself to the people. Allie, say hi. Mirroring. Got it. Tell the people what you do for New Relic.
Hi, everyone. I am a senior developer relations engineer here at New Relic, and I have to say it actually snowed this morning here in New York City. So I am bundled up, sweatpants on, the full nines. I had soup
Wow.
for lunch. Thank you.
Nice. And let's talk about our guests. First one is Marc down below me. I'm just going sort of in as the classes would call Bootstrappadon, going back and forth in opposite directions for each line. Let's start with Marc. Marc, say hi to the people. Tell them what you do for New Relic.
Hey, so Marc Netterfield, I'm a senior technology architect. Basically, my team sits between the developers and the field teams and the customers, and we kind of write content to help the field team to know what they got to do and talk to customers and find out what problems they're having with New Relic and take it back to the developers and kind of work inside that space.
The only wall that stands between the blood feud of the field team and the developers. Thank you so much, Marc. I'm glad to have somebody who's so into the product to talk. It's one of the best things about doing the Nerd Log. It is so nice to get people who get to work with the product every day to actually talk about it. And Allie's gonna be dropping links in the chat. Thank you so much, Allie, because we have a bunch of really good ones. We got great responses via Slack. Thank you so much, everybody.
Links will be in the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat. Sorry,
and
LinkedIn.
If you're watching this after the fact, usually people are watching after the fact like LinkedIn and YouTube, which, first of all, thank you so much, everybody. It's been so much fun. We're coming up on a year of the Nerd Log. It's been so much fun. I'm getting so distracted from introducing Josh. Josh, say hi to the people. I think this is the second time on the Nerd Log, maybe even third. Welcome back to the Nerd Log.
Yeah, I feel like I should be getting frequent flyer miles for showing up on the stream. So I'm Josh Biggley. I'm a product manager at New Relic. And I am completely empathetic to the snow because I am in Eastern Canada and holy frig is it cold up here. But so it is. So my job is to talk about network performance monitoring and how to use network telemetry within the New Relic platform. So I work closely with Marc, and he gets to protect me from all of the challenges that come out of the field. Right, Marc? He's nodding emphatically.
I love that because we're seeing more and more talk about network observability. And part of this is just sort of the reality of dealing with life in a microservice world, but where, network is a huge piece of the story. Also, frankly, we did see a ton of attacks and failures in the last year. All of them were either directly caused by or detected by network monitoring. So it does kind of matter. We have a SolarWinds person on the DevRel team now, which is very fun. Former SolarWinds are now on New Relic.
That's the world's best kept secret.
Yeah, what they'd like to say to the world is no comment.
Supply chain.
Yeah, but that is not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about Syslog. So let's start with Josh. First of all, let's assume wildly that after reading a bunch about Syslog and getting briefed about it, that someone forgot what it was, and we want to kind of start from there.
Right. So Syslog, if you've ever logged in SSH to a box, you have probably encountered Syslog. But for us, this specific use case that we're chasing is Syslog from network devices. So Syslog is a stream of events that tell you what has happened in your environment. Some of them are great, highly detailed. Hey, Marc logged in and he shut off interface, gigabit 01. Okay. Sometimes they're really obtuse, like someone logged in. So not intended to necessarily replace your security logs, but great augmentation for performance telemetry. It tells you the what behind the, oh, something changed.
And it makes sense. I know Syslog's quite old. It's like it developed. It's from the early '80s is when it was first introduced, and so not too surprisingly, like network devices are super able to communicate and send information about their performance on this. So what is, when we talk about things changing, what is sort of changing for the New Relic product now to say, hey, we have new support for this?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, let's talk about what both options are today. So about a year ago, we opened up a public-facing endpoint, an API endpoint, where you could send us Syslog, and we would take that in. Now, that's great if you don't have an aggregation point, if you're not already collecting logs in your environment and you want to send them someplace else. But for network engineers, they want to place inside of, maybe their secure VLAN, or maybe within the four walls of a data center where they can send those syslogs, see them come in, do any work that they might want to do on them, and then forward them out to us. So we partnered with our network performance monitoring partner, Kentic, and using the exact same technology that we use to collect SNMP telemetry, also a 1980s protocol, shout out to 80s.
Yeah. If you're
right?
the SendMail project basically just kind of cracked how the internet was going to work, it turns out.
Right, exactly. And network performance, network flow telemetry. So, if you have NetFlow, SFlow, JFlow, or any of the other flow technologies, you can use this common container to collect SNMP, to receive network flows, and now to collect Syslog and send it to New Relic.
Okay, so that makes some real sense about sort of why we would be doing this and what kind of the advantages for most users, or for users who have a fairly mature network monitoring strategy. And that's kind of, I don't mean to tell anyone to tune out or not be interested. I think that if you're just starting out and you want to kind of understand the options that are out there for monitoring a full stack, which thankfully, like at our monthly meetup, we're talking about sort of breaking into doing like operation stuff and being that startup person. And I totally support you going on that journey. In general, right? If you're running, a few web services on Heroku, right? Maybe you do not need to worry quite so much about network monitoring. But this is anybody who's running a complex stack. This is something that you really do have to worry about. So I haven't made Marc say anything yet. So thankfully, I have questions to ask. So I get to put Marc on the spot. So what is different about sending like network syslog versus just using the syslog TCP endpoint? Like, I guess you're like, you mentioned sort of post-processing or being able to do pre-processing. Is that kind of the idea? We want to filter what we're sending to New Relic, or help me understand that one.
So I would say one of the main key points is the forwarder that we had before was kind of using a specific variation of syslog that you would typically see coming out of like a Linux server. The receiver that we've got set up inside the K-Translate container now is using the protocol the way that infrastructure devices use it. So there's subtle variations in it, but one of the things is like they don't support HTTPS, right? So they're just going to be sending unencrypted data, and you don't want to be sending those wide over across the internet to our open endpoints that we had for the logging product. And so that's one of the things, right, is you can send that HTTP signal to the collector that sits inside of your secure network, and then it'll clean it up. It'll decorate it with some extra user tags and things like that, and then forward it along to our endpoint and encrypt it in the process, which I think that's kind of a big part of it.
Yeah, so this is something, I'll be honest, I am a little bit ignorant of, not so much on the Syslog that I think I got pretty read up on, but, we don't need to dive into individual like clients' use of New Relic, but one of the things that I sort of, having worked with New Relic way back in the day and then coming back to it in the last couple of years, I realized that there's quite a few more of these like private cloud or dark cloud systems to allow you to really say, hey, I'm going to collect data very locally in my system, and then decide what needs to go out of that system. This is for when you're really concerned about data sovereignty or about privacy. Is that's kind of a relatively big thing with New Relic now? This is like my not working in sales and not like actually getting to talk to enterprises anymore.
Yeah, definitely. People want to keep control of their data, where it's sitting, and how it gets out of their network.
And so I think we had I had a couple more questions. I love this list. Oh God, this is so helpful. So apart from just sort of storing data alongside like traces and metrics and events, like what else can we actually do with that syslog data, like within the New Relic interface? Now, I guess maybe this is the time that we're going to hop in and actually look at New Relic.
Yeah, I mean, Mark, I think you were planning on showing a demo, but can I do the intro here?
Because yeah, please.
I'm super pumped.
Let's pitch it before the demo so we can get excited.
Okay, right. So I'm super excited about this. So one of the advantages of sending syslog to New Relic is the machines do all the work, right? So, see, if we step back and we think about what is it that we actually want when it comes to large volumes of data, we want to give that data to a tool, to a platform that is going to somehow manufacture an opinion about that telemetry and then say, hey, Josh, you might want to pay attention here. Because sometimes I can be a super expert, like I know exactly where I need to go. And other times I'm like, geez, I have no idea. Here's all my data. Just tell me something interesting so I know I have a starting point. And we have two ways to do that now within the NR1 platform, the New Relic 1 platform. First is with log patterns. So the data that we send from this syslog collector hits our logs API. And because it does that, it takes advantage of this log patterns. So think about it. If you have one device, it's pretty easy to figure out, oh yeah, I can parse through my syslog and figure out where the patterns are. But if you've got hundreds or thousands of devices sending a syslog, how do you figure out what the patterns are? And this just does it automatically. And then second, and probably my favorite feature that we've released recently. I mean, times are relevant lately. So recently was last year. It's Lookout. So Lookout is a statistical analysis of any telemetry that's within the NR1 platform. So think about this. You're collecting your syslog and you want to know across all of the systems that are sending you syslog, have I seen an increase in the number of error events? And if so, is the increase statistically relevant? And if so, how relevant is it? And can I pick a time period in which that relevancy gets compared? By default, maybe the last 5 minutes compared to the last 60, or maybe today compared to the same day last week, or last month, or last year. I mean, oh, yeah. So Lookout allows us to do that. So you get this log patterns, tell me all the things that are common, and then you have this statistical analysis tool that you can use against any count of telemetry.
So Lookout, it really is. It's a major tool just because that ability, New Relic for a long time had the ability to zoom way in, especially on running application code, but now more on individual events and traces from almost anywhere in your stack. But this ability to say, hey, just kind of what's going on trend-wise? And one thing that's really important to me, and we'll see in a minute to look at, is the ability to spot trends going in either direction. So to say, hey, this is either way up or this is way, way down. And with error rates, probably, please don't wake me up if my error rate is way, way down, right? I'm probably fine. But almost anything else, including like latency, right? If latency is down to 0, there is a problem, right? If latency is down to then, for example, if a database is returning in 1/1000th of the time it was returning before, it's not returning any records, right? So don't wake me up. Maybe we just hired a genius and she's just been improving our query structure. But still, it's worthwhile to at least see and look at to say, hey, there's this sudden huge negative trend here. And then also to see it scaled, and we'll see this and look at in a sec, is that hey, there's this trend and it's on a service that represents 1% of our throughput or 95% of our throughput. And I'm able to see that very quickly. So let's hop over to screen share. You feeling ready?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. All right, I want to send this live, but I want to add one more person, so I'm going to mess with the layout live. That's how brave I am that I'm willing to do this setup. Now we can hear. Now Josh's voice is back. All right, so let's send that live. Love it. So, Mark, can I ask to give me 1 or 2 steps of browser zoom? because otherwise, a lot of people are streaming in like 720, so the text will be quite small for them.
Right. Hopefully that's a little bit closer for us. We'll give it maybe one more. We'll see how it turns out.
I keep my view one. Oh yes, now I'm feeling it. Now, folks, yes, this does make the LAN a little crowded. I promise you have way more pixels on your screen in real life than you do in the streamed version. But yeah, this makes our titles and stuff readable, so this is perfect.
Right. So what I was going to show is just kind of the basic idea of deploying the Syslog setup. So to get started, you have a couple of things that you would need to have ready, right? We've got to have a Docker server so that we can put the container running on it. And we've got to have our New Relic account here. So real quick, let me just throw some in here, make sure I got Docker up and running on my Linux machine. Thinking about it. Yeah, okay, cool. So I've got a couple containers running right now. So jumping over to my New Relic side, if we wanted to get started with Syslogs, we've got the I/O feature. You guys may or may not have seen this already, but I/O is kind of a similar to a marketplace for dashboards and alerts and different configurations that you might do in New Relic.
We actually got to start taking a look at I/O like with Kentic. Actually, it was like our first guest to talk about I/O. So Perfect. we get that connection. But yeah, a fantastic place to see like, hey, where else are we generating data? Let's go ahead and bring this in.
Right. So in this case, I know I want to set up Syslog, right? So I throw that into the search, and I'm going to use this guy right here because I want to grab a dashboard along with it. So we'll install this quick start and begin the install. So the first thing it asks us is which account we want to associate with. If you just have one account, then this is pretty easy. But if you have more than one, you just want, where do I want my Syslog data to show up inside a New Relic? Mm-hmm. So pick my account out of the list.
It's very likely that if you're sort of in the market for this kind of network data, you are dealing with like multiple New Relic accounts, which is great to be able to keep your stuff separate. Anyway, go ahead.
Right, yeah. So then they've got a little choice here. If you're already using the K-Translate container to monitor your SNMP devices, then you can take that same device list and pass it into the Syslog listener. And that way it'll decorate the incoming messages with all the same user tags that you already have with the SNMP polling. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to have a device list at all. You could go straight to the option number 3 here and just deploy without a device list. And then it's just going to take any incoming Syslogs that hit your listener and it'll just forward them up without any extra decoration. But since I do already have a device list, I'm going to go ahead and go with the first option. And there we go. So the guided install here just spits out a Docker command that we would need. And the main thing that's relevant to us here is that it already pre-populates our API keys and our account IDs. I'm not too worried about this API key because I'm going to blow it away right after we finish this.
Thank you. I love
no
that.
problem.
That's king behavior with an on-screen demo. Thank you.
There we go. So you just copy paste that into your Docker, and it's going to set us up a Docker container called K-Translate Syslog, right?
Yeah.
So give that just a second to get up and running. I'll just make sure that it's up, not rebooting or anything strange happening. Yep, looks good. So now I know I've got my listener running
in the locale where like this data is being collected like within our system, right? And then we're going to have it forward over system.
Right. In this case, I've got a little AWS environment I've set up. And so this is sitting on one of my AWS hosts and waiting for incoming messages from anything else that I've got in that VPC. So to get some action on there, give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and force some Syslog events on one of my network devices that I've got. So let me jump into that guy real quick.
While Mark's navigating, I think that's one of the big challenges with Syslog telemetry, right? We're used to like streaming telemetry from applications or intervals on SNMP collection of every 30 or 60 seconds within the New Relic NPM solution. But Syslog, something has to happen that's noteworthy. And so sometimes you can go hours, days, if you have a really slow environment or a really no-touch environment before you see a Syslog event. It's not that things are broken, right? It's just that, well, no one changed anything or logged into, that device.
Yeah, so the sort of, the thing that was so requested early on in New Relic's life, which is, can you just sort of call me or alert me when you haven't gotten any metrics recently, is super not applicable here, right? There might be long stretches where there's no data getting reported.
Yeah, don't do that with Syslog. You might be very grumpy at 3 a.m.
Right. Okay, so I generated some noise on here, and let me go to my next steps. I'm going to get a dashboard loaded up into my account. So just hit that guy. It looks so funny seeing this all with my screen scrunched up. But now I've got the instrumentation. That just loaded up to Syslog.
We're trying to install New Relic on an iPhone 7.
Yeah.
No worries.
So now I've got this Syslog overview dashboard just got added to my account. And this just gives us kind of like a high level view of, what Syslog events are coming in, and we can kind of have a summary, right? In my little lab.
Congratulations for anybody being willing to actually instrument something live and be like, now let's go see it in the New Relic data. Normally when I go and do sales presentations, I'm like, this is the moment when I'll pretend to spill my coffee so no one notices that it did. Yeah. Or it takes a few seconds. And now
we jump to the PowerPoints.
Right? It's like, and data should be here right now. And I'll be like, hello everyone. Look, I can juggle, right?
Yeah, exactly. I played with this a few times to get a sense. I mean, it only takes maybe a minute or so of lag time between.
I mean, we were here. It was pretty darn quick. That's pretty great.
Yeah. So, if my environment is just a tiny little lab, right? There's not a whole lot of activity, but if you've got your production system sending in, there could be dozens and thousands of Syslog events coming in all the time. So you want to see kind of what's the volume of what's coming in here, how many messages am I getting per minute, which devices are sending the most noise at me, what kind of severities are we dealing with, and all of that. And then if we scroll down,
I think is something that Marc was talking about, that this part is great if you really didn't have a nice shareable way to even look at your Syslog data before, right? And then we're gonna get deeper into this, but then the other big part is we're gonna get to patterns within here. But this already is like, hey, if you were just sending Syslog data to something that maybe only a shell operator was able to understand, your ability to share this out with every SRE and say hey, just kind of what's our message rate? All these basic questions is pretty hot.
How noisy is this? And right, so you can just see here my messages here. I've got this is me logging in and me logging out of that little demo router that I've got set up. So nothing too exciting, but just kind of proves the concept, right? All right. So then the other place is that these logs, they can go into the dashboards. You can set them up any way you want to. But normally what most people will be doing is just going through the logs UI that we already have set up in here. So now the Syslog events will be dropped in here right alongside everything else that we've got going into the logs endpoint.
Yeah, we saw a pretty powerful demo a couple weeks ago where someone was just sort of logging stuff from, again, a very basic AWS service and turning that into analytics. So it was how many people who registered for our online course completed the course, and just using a log sort or log filter and a custom dashboard to show that without having to generate the actual metric. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, right. Just applying what were they using, the filter?
Yeah, and I mean technically, right? If sale made is its own endpoint within your network, right? You could do the same thing here, right? It's hey, I see data's going to this service X number of times. That indicates what your business analytics are.
Right. So just to filter down this list, right, I've got a bunch of other logs coming in right now. But so if you do plugin type is equal to k-translate syslog, that'll filter it down to just the syslog messages, which can be helpful. And so there we go. We see I've got my 2 messages popped in right there. And we can jump into here. This is where you can access things like the log patterns and some of the other features that Josh is starting to talk about.
And it seems small, right? But being able to see a pattern with logins is actually kind of critical. It might even be one of those things you might think about creating an alert for, is hey, if login events, what are there, 25 people on the team? If there are more than 200 login events in a day, let's just go ahead and send a quick little email. It's hey, bud.
Yeah, in the past, I used to do consulting for a SIEM product, and that was one of those things is once people start looking at the events that are coming in there, usually it starts raising the back of the hairs on the back of their neck. They're like, I didn't realize how broken my environment was.
Yeah, no, it really is. And it's something I haven't got to talk about on the show is back when I used to do tech support and enterprise services for New Relic, when you would get data like this to start to come in, very often you would have that experience. Like, hey, data's starting to come in, and literally, you installed it this morning, right? So, let's just browse the dashboard, and someone in the room will be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I've got to go right now and go talk, and then they're like, hold on just a minute, Steve.
Exactly.
You'll see something in the first few minutes that's like, ooh, that's might be fine, but at least it's worth investigating.
Right. And to your point earlier, right, if I wanted to create an alert condition off of this, I could do it right from here, right? Just filter it to anytime someone logs in. I've worked in environments where, there were only really a handful of people that were supposed to be logging into the network devices, right? And so they wanted to know that, make it go to a Slack channel or something and just remind hey, so-and-so, especially if you've got shared accounts, which, no one's supposed to have any shared credentials, but if they do exist in your world, then it's nice to have a central place where everyone can see when they're used, so that way it reduces the likelihood of them being abused.
And you mentioned the Slack channel thing, which I say it probably every show, but I will say it again, for doing something like alerting off of this, or alerting with some of the AI ops tools where you're noticing trends, a really good place to start is just dumping it into a Slack channel and just saying, hey, what do you see here? And obviously, no, you don't want to get brush pig sound every single time that happens, but just to be able to look and see, is there something going on? And that way, when someone Slacks you already have Slack open, you can just hop open to those channels and say, hey, were there any interesting trends that showed up?
Yeah.
But Mark, what else do you want to show us in the interface? What other cool data do we want to look at?
That might be Josh. You have anything that you wanted to jump into specifically in this topic?
I'm super curious if you have any patterns. I know that you don't have a lot coming in for Syslog, but let's see what you've been up to, Mark. Let's take off your filter and see, are there any patterns? No patterns. Well,
we got some patterns. What? Give it a few minutes.
Oh, I see. Yeah, look at that. Right. So now, again, your Syslog stream is not super interesting, but even uninteresting logs have patterns.
Yeah, this is not that if you cannot and do not write regex, right, you will still struggle to find patterns in logs. But these things being made semi-automatically, right, much like with the errors inbox, where it's able to say, hey, your errors exist in kind of these three categories. This is such a powerful tool. I dropped the log patterns docs in as well, that just some ability to typify what we're seeing as logs.
Right, and then drill into it and see, okay, it's recursing into something. Let's go and see what's matching that pattern, what individual events fall into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is so nice because you see a nice view of what we're doing when we compress this all into something, right? And so it's great if we're saying, hey, log in by user star. It's oh, that makes some sense, right? Mm-hmm. If it's hey, someone is accessing root star, it's well, okay, maybe that one doesn't make as much sense, right? So it's a really nice preview system as well. And as someone who cut her teeth on runaway metrics and metrics on way too big of categories, this kind of automated piece is really big.
I mean, what good's technology if we're not going to make it do work for us?
Right.
Hello. Who's the boss here?
Yeah. I did a piece for the Uptime, our sister show. Check it out on all the video sites. We talk about centaur chess, where it's humans may have trouble beating an AI system at pure chess, but neither of them can beat a human using an AI to win at chess, right?
Right.
Getting advice, saying very quickly pruning paths and saying, no, I don't want to explore this as a strategic method and stuff. And this is sort of where AI actually is, folks. AI is not going to be writing your emails or flying your planes anytime soon, but it is certainly going to be able to look and say hey, I noticed this pattern, right? And this is just extremely good scripting, right? That's saying, hey, we noticed this pattern, and so we're going to group these things as appropriate. We didn't take a look at the Explorer, or the Trend Explorer, which I think I'm saying the wrong name for it.
But you're thinking Lookout? Lookout.
God, need one more Coke Zero, folks. I mean, one more generic carbonated caffeinated beverage.
So Lookout on logs does require a little bit of uplift, and there's a reason for that, right? Logs don't come in as numbers as math, which for someone, look, all right, I know we're streaming to like the entire world and all like 8 billion people are watching. I failed math in my freshman year of high school. Had to go to summer school to pick up the credit. Shout out to my math teachers who put up with me for the next couple of years. So math is hard, but in this case with logs, it's even harder because there's often no numbers, right? These tend to be strings that come in. So for any New Relic query language query that you write that can be summarized as a numeric value, you can then get this sort of visualization. Now, these are curated views. That Mark, did we mute Mark's screen share?
Oh, we'll hop back to it.
Okay, perfect.
Let's get going. There it is.
Right, so like these circles, and they're not super interesting circles because Mark's environment is...
I've only got one host.
Yeah, one host, and it's like just doing its thing. But you get large, complex environments, and you immediately begin to recognize where the predominant signals are and their changes. Now, I think if you did that for, tell me the rate of error events that I have coming in. Yeah, we can write that NERCL query, right? Okay, no problem. Imagine if we can now visualize that NERCL query, not on a time series graph, but visualize it over both time and amplitude of change in Lookout.
If we want to see, by the way, if you want to see like some pretty looking versions of Lookout, which you only get obviously with logs, right? You can't make numeric assumptions on them by default. I dropped the link in both the description and in the chat to the Lookout documentation, so you can see some of that working.
Mark is going full beast mode here.
He is live NERCL. We're doing.
He's going to do live NERCL, right?
I never do it, folks. I'm sorry. Okay,
it's scary.
Just see what we get.
Up on the high line, I'm going to have a net under me. All right. You know.
And then facet. Don't forget to facet. That's the secret sauce behind Lookout is faceting.
You got to do some kind of faceting, right?
What are we thinking? Host name or?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Or device name. Host name, device name, whatever.
There we go.
All right. So if you were to drop that query into Lookout, and there are two versions of Lookout, right? The first version is the one that's embedded right within the Explorer view. You don't have to do any work to get that view. You just send us telemetry and we do all the heavy lifting. And then there's Lookout that allows you to build your own custom views, and you can use our telemetry, or you can write your own NERCL queries if you want, right? Like roll your own. It's okay. All good. I'm in Canada.
Account.
Demo account. I got bit.
No.
I got bit. Yeah. So these queries, have a moderate amount of compute expense to them, right? So you can absolutely set up accounts that don't have permission to create new ones. So there we go. We hit it. We hit the wall. But that's life in live demoing, folks. We saw live data reported and a working query written first time, which I would never be able to do. I would absolutely write Faucet off of Faucet by or something, and therefore not have it work. So I'm pretty pleased that we got to see real data reported. That was pretty neat. Mark, what's the other stuff that we need to cover? What's the big
next? What is next over the next few months? What does the next few months hold for network performance monitoring at New Relic?
Oh, that's a great question. So if you think about what we've talked about today, we've talked about a new source of telemetry. So now we can do simple network management protocol. We can do flow logs for on-prem devices. We can ingest Syslog streams. We've got a beta out for VPC flow logs for AWS. And then this emphasis on guiding you through what telemetry matters, not more data, but the right data. And then asking questions about like, what things do you actually want to do with telemetry? Like, it's great that we can ingest all sorts of fantastic telemetry streams, but the power comes when you get to harness the expertise of all of New Relic and all of the experience that we've had in product to sort through all that data. So you've got, to use that chess analogy, right? You've got 2,000 human beings and their experience codified into our product, and technology, AI, helping you make decisions. That sounds pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, shout out if you are currently sending NPM telemetry using SNMP and you're collecting data from your switches, go check out the brand new switch view that we launched last week. It allows you to use Lookout via a single click on interface metrics. So click around, let us know what you think.
Very, very neat. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about, of course, is FedRAMP. This, our topic, and we promoted to such as like Syslog, now with FedRAMP, now with Flavor. So why should somebody care about FedRAMP if it's not their number one job to do so? Why does this matter to sort of someone operating an enterprise network?
Right. So if you work at a company that either has to operate within a FedRAMP, and FedRAMP stands for Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. It's programmed by the U.S. federal government. So if you are like me and you're not in the U.S., this probably doesn't apply to you. But if you interact with someone with a federal agency, or you are in a federal agency where you need to use a FedRAMP authorized tool or telemetry stream recipient, New Relic is it. So every time we release some new functionality, we have to go back to the FedRAMP team and say, hey, we've released this. We need to get it reviewed. So that there's been a security review done. If you've been through a FedRAMP audit, I've never have, but I hear they can be rather arduous. So that now, at least within the NPM space at New Relic, SNMP, network flows, and Syslog telemetry are all covered. So GA stuff, when it comes to beta things like VPC flow logs, not yet covered by FedRAMP, but if you are a federal space customer and you want to talk about VPC flow logs, please reach out to us. Let us know you're interested, or your account team, and they'll get a hold of us.
Yeah, and that's, if you are thinking, oh my gosh, you're looking, and I posted in the chat the link of our FedRAMP compliant endpoints, you're like, oh, I really need this one, obviously get in touch, because chances are you probably are not a two-person operation selling bunny slippers via WhatsApp, and we care, and we would like to get some support to that. Hey, if you're a two-person operation selling bunny slippers via WhatsApp, we also care about you. That is why New Relic has a free tier for life, so that if you have hundreds of users and you want to keep a very close monitoring on them, you want to do synthetic, so you want to monitor end to end and run automated tests and see how you're doing. You want to be able to send up random metrics versus via the open telemetry endpoint. You can do all that with the New Relic free tier for life. It's pretty impressive stuff. So do check it out. Of course, there's a link down there. If you go and sign up and you take a little screenshot of it and you DM it to me at serverless_mom on Twitter, I will absolutely get you some swag. But that was my own little hobby horse about people selling bunny slippers. But folks, what else do we want to make sure that people know? Allie, did I forget anything off the very super important agenda that we were supposed to cover?
It looks like we have covered everything.
Oh my god, that's the only
so I think
time this
we've
is going to
nailed
happen.
the segment.
That's the only time that's going to happen.
I have one more thing.
We have,
but one more thing.
But wait, there's more, right? I've always wanted to say that on a live stream. But wait, there's more. So if you are a network engineer and you're like, but Josh, hold on, wait a second. I'm a network engineer and New Relic is not a network monitoring platform. Like, don't you do configuration management? My response is this. As a network engineer, I want to help you stay asleep. I want to make sure that application teams are not waking you up at 3 a.m. to ask you, hey, is there anything wrong with the network? Yeah. Just so that you can say no and go back to bed. So please share your network telemetry with New Relic, with other teams, so that they can answer the question at 3 a.m. all by themselves. It's not actually the network, is it?
Yep. As long as you don't have at least high-level network metrics, it always could be the network, right? So you're always going to be the all the references I thought of were like upsetting ones. So you're always going to be the designated hitter. There we go. I thought of a sports analogy. That's safe. You're always going to be the designated hitter, right? And where it's like, hey, come on up one more time. Hey, can we check in with you one more time? So share that data so that you can stay asleep. I love that. But I wasn't quite there because I want to ask, as we put it here, what are you doing on social media? When's the SoundCloud album coming out? Or as I always like to ask, starting with Josh. Josh, where do you want to be found?
So you can find me most recently. I am back on Twitter. You can find me at Prestigious Nerd on Twitter. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And I guess if you search really, really hard, you can Google me and find me in all sorts of places tucked away in not the dark web, but the dark places of the internet.
Look on Etsy, where we're going to find some hand crocheted items.
Right.
Lovely, really impressive. Maybe that was a different Josh, but I'm going to assume it was the same one.
Right, some like Canadian maple syrup or something, right? Whatever.
Birch bark, wonderful
Right.
for a million applications. And Marc, where would you like to be found?
So I'm pretty low key on the internet, for the most part, everything that I do just goes up into GitHub. So
Awesome. Well, we'll share your GitHub link down in the description and in the chat. So thank you so much. Thank you for wrangling all the links, Ali. Really appreciate it. And I think with that, we'll go over to Be Right Back, and we'll be back. So if you're watching on YouTube, don't be alarmed. This is the end of the video. You can see the little things going right to the end. But there's another segment that's available on YouTube. Look at that little playlist button at the right. That's where you can watch all the Nerdlog episodes. We'll be back every Thursday. If you're watching us live, we'll be back in about a minute with Yoram to talk about MLOps. Super exciting area, something we really haven't talked about before, so that's always fun. Let's say goodbye to our two amazing guests. Thank you so much, y'all, and we'll have you back again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
thank you for having us.